Okay, now I'm on. I like the beginning of a show. So welcome. My name is Tendron. So just take a second to settle in to sitting here, being here, bringing your mind, if it's somewhere else, bringing your mind here. If there are any spots of tension in your body, you can use your breath to try to release that tension. Yeah, sometimes just bringing our awareness to the spot of tension, we naturally relax it. Like if your face is tight, you don't realize you're hunching your shoulders. So it's very helpful to just every now and then check you holding your body tense in some way and allow your breath to help you ease that tension. It also helps our mind to notice if whether we're caught in the past or the future, and allow ourselves to rest in the present. Now try to bring to mind the reason why you decided to show up today. And based on that reason, generate an intention to use this time well. And expand that intention with the wish that it not just benefit yourself, but that it's going to ripple out to benefit those around you. So now we're going to recite the four immeasurables. Do, do, do. Seem to have to relearn this every class. Okay. If you can't see it and there's a gold prayer book near you, it's on page 34. So this prayer helps us remember that, you know, we're one part of a family of 8 billion, not to mention the millions of other living beings, you know. So, you know, and so it matters that we take care of our mind, you know, in order to be a healthy member of that family of 8 billion beings. So, and just like us, all are seeking happiness or peace, however you define that, and wanting to end their suffering. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And on page 98, so recite the refuge prayer if you're comfortable 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So how's your mind this week? Debbie, can you hear me, by the way? Okay. If anybody can't hear me, I think there's another microphone that I can amplify my voice. I see myself as having a very loud voice, but I know that I don't necessarily enunciate. So feel free to say, I can't hear you. So, but I forget to ask sometimes. I just forget about it because I don't like wearing the microphone. So no self-interest there. So, bad. Okay. Do I know everybody here? I don't think so. I probably should know everybody's name, but I don't. So this is Retta. This is Hernan. People sit up front of all of them know me. They're not willing to get that close otherwise. This is Anthony. Anne is over there at the end.
I'm Lori. I'm visiting from Long Island.
Ah,
So I'll be
welcome.
here in 2 months. Yeah, thank you.
This is Lori. This is Steve. This is Mary Carmen. Next to Mary Carmen is Margaret.
Camilla.
Camilla. I should be able to remember that by now. Okay. And then on the back row, there's Graciela in turquoise. Susan. Graciela, Susan, Camilla, Lori. And then there's Randy in the polka dot shirt.
Seth.
And then Bob in front, Roy in the back. I'm sorry.
Lori.
2 Loris. Mary in the back. Sydney, Lori, Seth, Camilla, Lori, Susan.
Great.
All right.
She listed on the combat.
Debbie is right here. John. I know your name. Jean. Kelly. Haley with an H. Kelly, Haley, Tara. You'd think I'd remember that. Okay.
You need a color.
Tara Haley Kelly. Huh?
I'm impressed you're going backwards
I
now.
have to. John, Sydney, Lori, Seth, Susan, and Lori, and
You don't have to mention your name.
Deepa.
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 Deepa. Oh, of course. I see you online all the time. Come on, name. Go in. So, okay. So, hello, and I'm Tendron. Okay. So, who checked on their mind this week? Oh, you can come anywhere.
Thank you.
Anybody check on their mind this week?
Multiple times every day.
A little bit,
Good. This is good. I'm glad to hear it that you've been checking every day
little bit agitated with everything that's going on.
with everything that's going on. Where? Where is everything going on?
International relationships.
Okay. Which we're experiencing where?
Never mind.
In our mind. So, just a second. So, we want to kind of keep that as part of our awareness that everything we're experiencing it through our consciousness. So paying attention to what is going into our consciousness, what we're thinking about is really important to our well-being. So like if we notice a lot of agitation, what can we do to address that?
President.
I wanted to say that, but I didn't have the president.
Get a new president.
Okay, this is our typical response, isn't it? We have to fix something external to our mind in order to have peace of mind. Guess what happens?
What happened?
Well, A, it doesn't happen. What do we do instead? Instead of having, although that's how I felt when Obama was elected. It's like, it was just the greatest sensation of like, oh, this is good news.
We ended racism, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but it was just, I like, this is a good guy. I like this. So, and the country elected him. I couldn't believe it. So it was great. But does that mean that, like I even thought about that, 3.5 months later? No, I mean, it's just sort of like I had my other worries. We always find something because the nature of our existence is not very satisfactory and it's unpredictable and it changes constantly, So if we look for it, we can find something to agitate our minds, Now, we want to be informed, right? That's a helpful thing as a participant of the family of 8 billion beings, So how do we be informed without driving ourselves crazy? So what kinds of ways, if we notice our mind being agitated, what kinds of things can we look at to work with that agitation?
Work with impermanence.
You can work with impermanence. How does that help?
It's going to change.
It's going to change. It will change. Can change for the worse sometimes. It can change for the better, but it's not static. Things are constantly changing. What else can we do?
Work on attachment and aversion.
Work on attachment and aversion because we're attached to things going the way we think they should go. That's part of our agitation. It's just this feeling that it's not right. And I am, you know. Now, and that can be absolutely true if there is such a thing as absolutely true. And then we're averse to people or things or situations that what we don't like. You know, so we really would like the world, all those 8 billion human beings plus, to cooperate and think the way we do and like the things we do and need the things we do and share the same solutions that we think would work and put them into, implement them. When is that going to happen?
Good luck with that.
Yeah, but
Yeah, good luck with that. It's never going to happen.
that's what I just said.
Well, good. You can come here. Yes, this is not rocket science, is it? It really isn't. But you would think that we really think it's difficult to not recognize when the state of mind we're having is based on a very unrealistic expectation, and that unrealistic expectation is part of our suffering. That it is the attachment to our point of view, or however, whatever it is, or our aversion to someone else's point of view, that is part of that agitation. Yep.
I don't think it's an unrealistic expectation to want individuals to behave and do their job and not kill people.
Oh, you don't think that's an unrealistic expectation?
I guess that's where my agitation is. Yeah, I don't expect someone to.
Has that in history? Have you ever seen an example of that?
I mean,
So why make
guess
that
it
an
is
expectation?
unrealistic.
Now it's different to say, wouldn't it be wonderful if,
yeah.
and it would be. No, I think almost everybody would agree with that. But a lot of people feel like the only way to have that is to kill everybody who thinks differently. Does that work? Do we create friends that way or enemies? Yeah, we just come up with new enemies. So it's an ongoing cycle. So we have to look carefully at whether we have if our expectations, to see how expectations are different from hope, from, the things that wouldn't it be nice, da 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 da. And whether we're holding people accountable to an agenda that is unrealistic. When you're talking about the world and world leaders, to sit there and hope that you can turn on the news today and see all their decisions being reasonable, and nonviolent and whatever. And why is that unrealistic? It's not that it's not reasonable. Yeah.
Because people show you who they are.
I'm sorry.
Because people show you who they are.
People, guess what people are?
Human.
They're just like you. They have aversion and they have attachment, and they get angry when their aversion's present, when they're attached, their desire and their craving go rampant, so what we're saying is I expect all the other members of my family, all 8 billion beings, to act differently than I do. They should get it right. I don't get it right, but they should get it right. That's not how change works. to change that attachment and aversion, what do we have to do?
Work on our minds.
Work on our own minds. And if you've tried to work on your mind and tried to work on your attachment or aversion, have you found it easy?
No.
It's not easy. You know, what the Buddha said was we're kind of out of control due to our states of mind, that we have these habits of mind, like expectations that just aren't realistic at all. You know, and they're really just a reflection of our desire, our attachment to a particular way things ought to be. Like, in my personal view, all desserts should be good for you. I mean, wouldn't that be better? I don't like this deal, you know, that, you know, my sweet tooth is like insane, you know? So we need to recognize that the way we think is the first step into reducing agitation, reducing stress, reducing, you know, all these things that worry. You know, the most useless activity of all is worry, because worry does not equal problem solving. Problem solving is not useless. We need to problem solve. But when we just worry, what does that do for us?
Anxiety.
Causes
Mm.
suffering.
It creates anxiety.
It creates anxiety. It creates bad sleep. It distracts us, you know, from, like, you know, when we're driving, it can be distracting.
Productive work.
I can't hear him.
Productive work.
Productive work.
It manifests physically too. Like,
It manifests physically, you know. We make ourselves sick with worry. We have expressions like that. And there's a reason we have expressions like that. Yeah, Graciela.
I was thinking that I have equated worry with concern or with problem solving. Neither of which it is.
Yeah, I think that this is the thing. So we want to observe what's going on, how we're thinking, and go, is this skillful or not? Is it helpful or not? Or am I just rehearsing all the things I'm scared of happening, or that all the things I think shouldn't happen, or, you know, the fact that I can't control my kids' lives and futures and stuff. You know, I mean, it's not that there are things to so-called worry about, but is worrying useful? You know, so Shantideva, the 8th century. Yeah, did you have a good?
So where does the source of our mindset come from?
It's from our mind. According to the Buddha, every moment of mind is caused by our previous moment of mind. So we have developed habits over eons, or if you prefer, this life, of responding to events, to even responding to our own thoughts in habitual ways. And some of which are very skillful and others are not. You know, so it doesn't, you know, we learn habits from other people, we watch them do it and go, oh, that looks like a good thing to do. And, you know, when we're kids just copy everything, you know. But we actually, according to the Buddha, we've been doing this life after life after life after life after life after life. So the habits are very powerful. You know, so some people have been anxious since birth. Some people have been angry since birth. Some people have been generous since birth. Some people just seem naturally patient. I can't even begin to understand that. And then, you know, so it's this, you know, and the Buddha would say that's just because they've been practicing it in recent lives, many recent lives, and they've developed strong habits. Yep.
That gentleman had a question.
Yep.
Yes, good morning. Let me introduce myself. My name is Saverio. I'm Italian, and I love Buddhist. That's why I'm here. It's not the first time. I would like to ask a question. Buddhist, but the heart of Buddhism is in Tibet.
Is what?
Tibet.
Tibet.
or Tibet.
This is Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah.
Exactly. Tibet is occupied
Yeah.
under Chinese domination, not
Okay.
Trump domination.
Yep. So what does
Okay.
that tell us?
So
You had a question?
the question is, Buddhism, how can stand regarding the emotions to be occupied by other people and reacting with such painful, playful meaning and
So what's the question?
the question is how to manage such complicated situation, which is a politics, but that is the
That's right. We don't have control over that, do we? The politics.
But regarding
Yep. And so my point is, one of the things we don't have control in that situation is the politics, what other people are doing, people who are in positions of power, whatever. Most of the population doesn't have the influence to be able to do something on the level of, helping to influence politics. We all have a voice in the sense of, if we speak up, it keeps speaking up, and we keep making our points made, to be able to affect change. But when you're under the domination, if your government, I guess that's the easiest way to put it, is under the sort of military control where you just put you in jail if, depending on your opinion, then it makes speaking up a big risk for very little, well, not reward, but just, even anything, they just, push your view away. And if they keep you there forever, your view never gets out again, So it's a big choice. And some people do it, have done it again and again and again and again. It's very inspiring, But the point is, we have to work on our own mind. And so what the Buddha said was, no matter what's happening out here, if we can remember that just like us, all the beings separate from us or seemingly separate from us want happiness, don't want suffering, and they do not know what they're doing. That's the ignorance part. They think getting all this power and control over people will give them what they want, And it appears like they're getting what they want. But then they immediately want something new. I have two people just dying to say something. So Laurie, go, whoever.
Go ahead. Oh, someone here? No, me. Okay. We do have one control, which I hope we all remember, and that is to vote.
Yeah, well, of course, that's right. We can participate. But we don't live in China, do we?
No, the people in China,
Yep.
unfortunately, don't have that. But here in our country, you can vote these people out and
Yep.
change the government.
Yep. And you know what you can do? You can vote without anger, which doesn't look like this president, So, and this is the point.
Maybe you can vote.
Maybe you can vote. That's another point. Yeah. Sounds good. Seemed like it worked for hundreds of years. Well, literally 200 of years. But anyway, so the point is this idea that somehow the path to happiness is controlling other people is inaccurate. Yes.
So we've learned or we've seen that anger is motivational for a lot of people, right?
But it's not wisdom.
Right. But so with that anger and motivation, people try to strive for the good for not only themselves but for others.
But
And
unfortunately, no, wait for me.
yes,
This is my class.
yes. I'm here.
Yeah. So anger might be motivating, But in moments of anger, we don't have much wisdom.
Mhm.
So we really need to shift from whatever got, that indignation of injustice and all those other things that arise to being wise about what to do about it. That's a different state of mind. According to Buddhism, when anger is present, wisdom cannot be present. They are opposing, because anger is this wish to harm the source of anger, to stop them, harm, whatever. I mean, it's just that, it's coming from a place of this person has to go away. Oh. So, yes, it can be motivating, but we don't want to rehearse our anger to keep that motivation going. We want to rehearse our wisdom about the fact that, in this country, we have some power to change things. And even in everybody, it doesn't matter where you live, you have power to change things in the sense of your village, your community, on the smaller scale. You might not be able to change the government, but how you treat each other in your neighborhood, it can be, affected. And those things are important. It matters, not just how 8 billion people act, but the people in your neighborhood, and how we treat them. So that's this idea that anger can be useful. I mean, as holiness goes, okay. But basically, in Buddhism, this exaggeration of the negative qualities of the source of anger is faulty. It's a wrong consciousness. So we don't want to make that the foundation of our effort to change things. We want to use wisdom. We want to use compassion. We want to use our capacity to listen. We need to be able to we can't force people to think the way we think. I can't force you to agree with me. I can't force you to change your mind. So all we can do is model the behavior we hope others will have in our own actions of body, speech, and mind. And see if it changes our relationships. If we bring to our relationships an attitude of care and concern that involves really hearing them, really seeing them, understanding, just like me, there's a person out there. Oh. And recognizing that the way I'm thinking is what causes my suffering. We can have there's the suffering of the body, right? Now, when we have suffering of the body, can we make that worse? Oh, that sounds intelligent, doesn't it? And we do, don't we? Like, so how do we make it worse?
Googling AI, and then next thing you know, you're gonna die. Even though, it's just like this path that's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst possible thing ever. And why would it happen to me? We're looking for something that tells us, no, this can't be right. Last week on Sunday after teachings, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there's this water drop, and I keep taking my glasses off and trying to clean my glasses and putting it back on. And then I realize that water drop keeps moving. So it's a new floater. It's this giant water drop. So I look that up. I Google it. Could be a sign of retinal detachment. And guess what? What's their advice? Get yourself to an emergency right away, because you can go blind within 24 hours. Oh, I was thrilled. So I ignored it overnight. What do you do? I woke up early, and then I called at 7:30, and finally the stupid office was open at 8. And I was able to go in the next day at 8. And so what did I do that morning? I kept reading those things and going, oh my goodness, maybe I should go to the emergency right now. You know, why didn't I go to the emergency room?
You didn't want to?
It wouldn't be able to help you.
Well, they tell you to go though, and so I thought, well, my appointment's tomorrow at 8 in the morning. How long will it take them to see me at the emergency room? Probably till 8 tomorrow morning. I don't want to spend all day in the emergency. Besides, I don't want to know. We're kind of insane this way, aren't we? So not everybody. Some people have very reasonable responses to medical information. I'm apparently not one of them. So the point is that all of that effort of worrying and not understanding, not be certain about what to do, blah, 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 total waste of time, isn't it? I felt terrible, agitated, anxious. It's like, and you're sitting there and you're going, you're doing this to yourself. And I knew I was doing it to myself. And I just kept rationalizing with, well, they say you could go bluff. So good news. I had to go back in 2 weeks to make sure it's not the retina detaching. So apparently it can lead to that. But, so far so good. So it's still I have this big water drop that keeps moving around. It's very interesting. So the point is we need to recognize that the body doesn't cooperate with us. It falls apart, and it also can just get injured, it has nothing to do with age. It just be injured. And that might be painful. I mean, it might, generate the body sensation of pain. And that's still an experience of the mind. People who don't have pain receptors don't have that experience. So, but then we can layer all kinds of suffering on top of that experience with our worries, with our expectations, our wishes that it was different, why me's, all that kind of stuff. And we need to be able to discern when we're doing that and to be able to go, you're making yourself sick. Stop it. You quit Googling. You do whatever it is you need to do. You call a friend, say, oh, have you had this happen? And yes, so I call a nun, and the nun goes, oh, my doctor said you have to get to the. So anyway. But of course, the emergency room just refers you to an ophthalmologist if it is so it's all kind of hilarious. So, but the point is, this is all a mental reaction to something, some event. That we have control over that, or we can develop control over that. We can't develop control over our body breaking down. We can do things to help prevent it, but that's about all we can do. And our efforts may not work. We can live in a country, which has, where the citizens have no rights. And you can, it sounds good, doesn't it? But, and we can take that situation and just focus on that in our lives. And what would be the result of that? Constant suffering. It may even be a condition for you to develop hatred. So instead of, you have the attitude of compassion, love for everybody involved, ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, all the other citizens, and the people in the government, and the people, not the government, the people in the government. If we can develop that sense of these are people who do not know what they're doing, they do not understand, they're creating all kinds of negative karma for their futures. They're placing all these new habits in their mind stream that says power gets you anything, and so they're going to suffer in the future for that.
Future's not coming fast enough sometimes.
This is why we have to practice. This is why we have to sit there and take some time to think, to spend some quiet time and go, okay, I'm making myself crazy over this. Let's take some time to really go through the way I'm thinking and dismantle it. Recognizing, oh, that's not helpful. And then thinking about, I'll never forget a teacher one time telling the class that, patience is this response of, not retaliating when someone's trying to harm you. And then he looked at us and he goes, when's the last time someone actually tried to harm you? In our world, it's not very often. Because most people are not thinking about you at all. But we're not living in a war zone. We're not living in the jungle. Where we're trying to avoid wild animals. So we really need to understand that our level of patience is pretty beginner. Because we're not really, no one's trying to kill us. Nobody's trying to attack us, in even when we're enraged, we're not under, and this is not universal, obviously, but our conditions for developing the patience that you have to have if you live in a place where all your rights are taken away, and not develop into hatred, not have your mind just hate these people who are trying to control you, like the prisoners of war. And so it's so impressive when you hear these stories about Tibetans who were, in prison for decades, and all they focused on was, how do I not lose my compassion for my jailers? Now, fortunately, we don't have to use that kind of condition to develop our patience now. This is part of our good conditions. This is our precious human rebirth. That we have really pretty good conditions to work with to develop our mind. We're not under extreme danger. We're not in these, we have most of our basic physical needs taken care of. We have jobs, or we have food, or we have shelter, we have some basic needs. We're not living in a war zone. It's very hard to take care of your mind in a war zone. The conditions are too stark, they're too harsh. So this is what they mean when the Buddha talks about having a precious human rebirth. We're in really pretty good conditions. So our discomforts are minor compared to many of those that exist in the world. Yet our habits of mind can make them seem huge. And that's something we can choose to change and we actually succeed with. And we all have different areas that we're better at than others. Some of them we've learned of. I'm sure parents have developed all sorts of ways to not overreact to their children's difficulties because, they're on the third child. They got some experience now. They're not going to freak out at everything that happens, So, it's some people like me, you have a floater in your eye and you panic, you Google and that was a mistake, and you panic, although it wasn't a mistake to realize I needed to go to the eye doctor, and soon. But it's just this, it's recognizing the limits of our capacity to change what's happening out here, and recognizing that we have no limits on changing what's going on in our mind. It's just that we have to develop new habits, and that takes time. It's a process. It's hard. So it's like, it's not that we want to say that, oh, every moment of anger, is bad. Because like you say, when you recognize an injustice, your first response to it may be anger. But holding on to the anger and not working on the problem is a mistake. That's again, this it's a wishing, oh, I wish I could just change other people, to act right.
Is holding a grudge a form of anger?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's rehearsing. It's it's a result of rehearsing anger. When you call all your friends and say, oh, so-and-so mistreated me. Can you believe that? You're looking for reinforcement that, yes, it's right to be angry about it, or miffed, or whatever.
My friend has the saying, don't hold a grudge. That's like giving somebody a free rent. You find?
Well, what the Tibetans say is anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die.
Holding a hot coal to throw it.
And so we want to keep those kind of things in mind when we recognize, okay, yeah, okay, I didn't like what just happened, but now I'm making it worse, and I can keep making it worse and worse and worse by rehearsing it in my mind and not bringing any wisdom to evaluating the situation. Yeah.
So the only thing I can control are my own thoughts, and they're most of the way. And then there's this line in the sand for me, and that is the willful, conscious, violent taking of another's life. And then I can even.
But you're okay with the ones who just get close.
No, I'm
I'm teasing you.
Oh, okay. No. But with that, because for me, there's that intense of a conscious, it wasn't an accident.
No, it's
conscious.
People develop their minds to the point that they can make a premeditated, malicious, malice aforethought, I read murder mysteries, decision to kill someone.
And they can do that, and they can be okay with that and go on with their life and all that.
They're not going to be okay with that. They are not okay already. That, they may not understand they are setting themselves up for, I don't know how many eons in the hell realms. It's the number of lives you could take, so this idea that we could somehow take all the people who have these conscious decisions. Do you really think they're in control? Their mind.
No.
Well,
as you say, this conscious decision.
Well, that is because it's personal, and that is because I had one person.
So you're holding that.
Yes.
Okay. And you made this whole story about that other person.
And I know that person was crazy when that person took it.
Even more so. Okay. So that person, we could also look at and go, perhaps that person was out of control. What creates a mind that's out of control?
Confusion, ignorance, suffering, anger.
Us, the thoughts, our habits of mind. Nobody can do that to you. It's over time. Like I think about when I was in high school, probably my 20s too. I really, really didn't like the fact that men and women were treated differently. And, and I was really sensitive to it. So any kind of language that was used, I was raised by a chauvinist, and it was just like, oh, Dad, this kind of stuff. And I get really mad at society not fixing this quickly, and it was the time the feminist movement, all that kind of stuff. Um, but I realized how much I hated people who acted that way. I didn't hate my dad, but a part of me did. I hate that part of you, you know. But I knew my dad in a more full context, right? But the people just out on the street, or the professor, the boss, it's just sort of like, yeah, I can just completely hate them. Okay. So then I read a book by a woman who was in Afghanistan during the Taliban before the current situation. And she, for 2 years, she couldn't go anywhere. Women weren't allowed to go out. So, and she was a teacher. And so she started sort of a clandestine school, within her building and which a lot of people did. But anyway, her brother, they're all now under control of this sort of military style regime. And he had a job at the university, and of course all the women couldn't work and all that kind of stuff. And his job one day was to go clean up a lab. And so he got to the lab, and it was just dismembered women. That was it was in the lab. So he'd take all these body parts of women and da. And you think, how did someone's mind get like this? And I said, well, look in the mirror. Just look at your own mind, at how your anger at this division between the genders, that if you practice that throughout this life, you practice it in the next life, you'll be that guy in the lab. That's how it comes. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come from, circumstances. What happens is we create the cause to have circumstances that allow us to behave that way. Because we've been, this is cause and effect. And you have to think of it in the long term. Now, when something happens to us personally, we may not be able to do that because, we do have, this is a process. But in that moment, reading that book, I realized, oh, this is me. This is where this mind goes. And so it's so important to check my anger now when it's not there, because that's the only way to stop it from going there. That's the danger of rehearsing anger. That's the danger of clinging to an idea and then making a decision that because this idea, it's correct that men and women should be treated equally and that somehow the people involved, are just one thing, where they're just, they're just wrong. So in Buddhism, where do these things come from? It comes from practicing with our thoughts. It's with our mind. It's about, not challenging, the way we respond to things in our minds and just going, oh, this is not going to go well. This is leading me down a road that I really don't want to take. Does that mean you have to like people that, you vastly disagree with? No, but you can still have love and compassion. You can still wish them no harm and wish them to find happiness. That's different from preference. You don't have to like them. They might not be likable. That's different. How we treat them should be based on it's another sentient being who wants happiness and doesn't want suffering. I'm not going to hang out with the Chinese government. If I had a choice, they wouldn't be my friends. But that has nothing to do with trying to develop the mind that doesn't have any wish to harm. As soon as we start having this wish to harm, even, people like that we hate, we are practicing a mind that will eventually lead to that, to where we actually harm them, and not just with our thoughts. You know, and we have to really be, if you have a problem with anger, it's so, I mean, many of you may not, you know, it's so important to catch yourself when you're having that, you know, that's that strong kind of sense of awry, and recognize I don't want to follow this mind, because this mind leads to the very action I'm so appalled by. You know, because in the next life you may have different circumstances. You may end up in a war zone. You may end up, you know, and so, you know, the habits of mind matter. Because we all see people in war zones who, instead of just getting all caught up in their hatred of the enemy, they get caught up of trying to take care of, you know, others. You know, they try to help people. They hide people who are under danger of being, you know, just arrested and killed. You know, there are also wonderful actions that happen in war zones. That comes from habits of mind. You know, and they're in conditions now that they can act on those habits of mind in ways that, you know, are really scary to me, that, you know, but I'm not in a war zone at the moment, you know, so it's just, but they rise up to their, you know, they don't let their self-preservation interest override their wish to help others. Yep.
Oh, I can't quite get that, because they may want to help others and do help others, but they could still have a lot of anger.
Yes, they might. They might. But they also, I bet you they don't have anger while they're doing it, because that will distract them. There's no wisdom in anger. You know, you get home after a dangerous operation. I mean, I'm sure soldiers can't really just function well if they're just angry. You know, that's when they, those horrible events happen where someone just loses control. Yeah.
I have a question, not specifically pertaining to anger, but let's say you recognize a habit of mind that you don't want to follow. So you mentioned that you recognize that and chooses not to follow the thought, correct? But so if I just keep doing that as it arises, is that how I get rid of?
Okay, so there are a couple of things that need to happen. In the moment when that state of mind arises, we're kind of out of control, right? That habit's taken over. Oh. So in those moments, we want to, as soon as we recognize it, what we work on is just pausing and not saying anything or not acting on that thought, and trying not to repeat the thought. Just kind of, okay, I'm going to step back and try to chill. But then later, you want to sit with that moment again. And you want to use your reasoning mind to think about why you don't want to follow that thought. You want to, we need a list of reasons, because we have reasons when we're mad, don't we? We have a long list of justification why our anger is appropriate. We need the same kind of list for why maybe anger is not the most appropriate. We're not as effective when we're angry. We can't think clearly when we're angry. So we want to develop, or it's attachment, I'm out of control because of my attachment, that I may want desserts not to have any health consequences, but they do. So I'm lying to myself when I think, oh, it won't hurt, that kind of thing. You need to come up with your own personal list of why you want to change this behavior. Otherwise, you won't keep trying. You'll just keep kind of giving in. You want to have reasons why you're better off if you don't do that.
One of the reasons I have it is I know I'm reinforcing my anger.
That's right. That's why I call it rehearsing. Every time we tell the story, every time we, go through the list of why it's reasonable that we're angry. And we need to come back. Yes, Lori.
I'm trying to understand this about anger, because I was raised with a rageaholic, narcissistic mother. I didn't do anger at all, but I turned everything into.
Well, so you did do anger. You just did it towards you.
I did it toward me.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that really wants to do anger, healthy anger. Is there such a thing?
I wouldn't say so. And but some people, this is where Western psychology and Buddhism may diverge a little bit. Learning how to be assertive, learning how to trust your own voice,
Yes.
your own inner wisdom is wisdom.
With a little anger.
No, it doesn't have to have anger.
With
No, it's
assertion.
anger. But keep in mind, anger has a very specific meaning in Buddhism. It's the wish to harm.
Oh,
We don't have to have that ever.
I don't want that.
Yeah, right. And you've been harming yourself.
Yes.
Yes. And so you want to stop that.
Yes.
So you certainly don't want to use the mind that harmed you in order to heal you. That's not logical, actually. But assertiveness is something else. And what usually we have to do that is we have to overcome a lot of fear. That it's like, ugh.
Well, one of the hardest things for me is if you care about someone and you're watching them harm themselves in some way, and it's obvious to you that they keep repeating a pattern, and you try to help them.
How's that going?
Not well.
Yeah, right there. That's your answer.
Exactly.
Is it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Keeping yourself in your interior world, practicing that habit doesn't work.
So would it be beneficial? So the idea of trying to help at all, should you?
So you think there's, what's my Buddhist answer to that?
Change people. You can't change people.
You can't change people. What's the other thing about what to do? Because of course we help each other, we benefit each other, but how do we do it? The standard answer is it depends. I can't give you an answer of what's going to be.
Well, I knew someone who believed in saying something once, and if the person didn't hear it or take advantage
Right.
of.
Okay, so that's one answer.
That was it.
My marriage counselor, that clearly didn't work, said if you ask your spouse to do something 3 times, if you go to the 4th, you're nagging. Now, is that a fact? No, she made it up to get me to shut up. Because you can certainly say that if you've asked them once and they didn't do it, asking them twice is nagging. That's fair. The point is, if we've already said something to someone once and they ignored us and they don't provide any condition, one big thing is, are they asking you for advice? What's my general response to giving advice to people that have not asked for it? It doesn't work. And who are you?
Right.
Yeah.
It's so important to recognize that you think that you know best for that person. Now, I'm not saying we don't see people do idiot things. I've done many idiot things to myself. No question about it. And and a loving, like it depends on your relationship, right? That's one thing. You may have a loving friendship or a parent-child relationship or, whatever. And it may be appropriate for you to try to find a good condition to sit down and have a chat about it because you think they're suffering, and check up, and try to have, a conversation, not a lecture on what someone else should do. But it's really about understanding that just like in your own life, that's one of the reasons to kind of overcome this idea that, like, I'm sorry, we have to recognize that part of that urge is because you want to quit suffering. You want to quit worrying. It's about you, not the other person. How many, like impatience. You know, how many times have you wanted to just do something for someone because they're taking too long?
Right.
Maybe none of y'all ever had that feeling, you know? That's about ending your own suffering. It has nothing, you may think you're being generous to this other person, but it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. And so the more we can discern what really is going on in our mind, you know, understanding that it is hard to make change. We're not comfortable. Like one of the, in blah, 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 that was easy for me to say. In Tibetan, they talk a lot about that, you know, they use the word Gampa to describe the meditation hall, right? That means to become familiar, Gam. Their word for meditate it's basically means to become familiar with. We're very familiar with our habits, aren't we? So we're trying to create new habits. We need to become very familiar with them. That's why we have to reflect on them, or we have to come up with lists. We have to become very familiar with how our mind already is. And then we have to become very familiar with how we would like it to go, you know?
A lot of this conversation reminds me of the Serenity Prayer.
Of course, because the 12 steps work. Not a surprise. Dharma doesn't have to come from the mouth of a Buddha. It has to lead out of suffering. That's all it is, you know? So it really is about recognizing wisdom comes from recognizing what we're already doing and then evaluating whether it works or not. And then evaluating what we need to change it, you know, and what support we need to change it. Like if you have no idea what to do, then you get help. For many of us, it's just the teachings of the Buddha. You can just find the help and, oh, this is a good method. This works for me, blah, blah, blah. Other people may need the help of a psychologist. You know, they're dealing with difficult situations, you know, at home and blah, 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 because it's complex. You're not just dealing with yourself. You're dealing with your children, your spouse, you know, whatever. If you're dealing with trying to overcome fear, well, if you're afraid, it's going to be very hard to make those changes. You probably need some hand holding. That's not a bad thing. It's saying, I'm human. I don't know what I'm doing and I'm afraid. Can you help me through these steps? You know, obviously, we have to do it ourselves. You know, nobody is going to be able to make the changes for us. But we can try to look for conditions that make it a little easier on ourselves to make progress. So one of those things is if you have a problem with anger and you're hanging out with people who make you angry, stop that. You know, it's like, really? It's like the 12 steps. You don't hang out with your former drinking buddies or drug taking buddies or whatever. You know, we have to have a respect for our own limitations and not feel bad about them. We need to know what they are, you know. But the idea that I can't change this, that's not true. So we need to catch ourselves when we think, you know, I didn't do it. Oh, I'm not talking about physical action. I'm talking about a thinking action. We're lying to ourselves because we can change our mind. We've been doing it our whole life. We've learned new things. We approach things from different angles than we used to, you know, and it's because we've changed our mind. So it's doable. Some things are harder than others. It's easy to do when you're just trying to learn a new skill for a job or somebody pays you to do, you know, somehow that helps. You know, it's much harder to do something that just seems so natural to you because you're so familiar with it. And of course, it's going to arise without effort. And then you're going to have to actually overcome it because it's still going to arise. It's not like you can rationalize your way or reason your way through it not happening. It's a habit. Yeah. Grazie.
Thinking what is the antidote for like heightened anxiety?
Well, it's a lot of it is about emptiness. Anxiety, it's all about us, isn't it? It's it's a fear of whatever. I mean, like with my fear of going blind, so that's that.
Well, I was thinking, is it like trust or something else like so? Or gratitude could be some kind of an antidote to anxiety.
Well, if trust in yourself is what you need to overcome anxiety. That's not so easy. I mean, that takes experience. And so one of the things you do with anxiety, and I'm a master at having anxiety. I'm not necessarily a master at overcoming that, but I've gotten pretty good. I show up here. I can't believe it. 9 years I've showed up here. I find teaching terrifying, but so what you have to do is the same thing. Is it skillful to be terrified? No, trust me, that's not a skillful state of mind. Okay. Do I have reasons to be terrified? Not really. If I really, it's just what I do. It's what I'm familiar with doing. I've always been anxious, you know. So I have to go through a thing like, okay, do you really have nothing to offer these people who show up to class? Now I probably know more Buddhism than most of them, not all of them, but most of them. So maybe I do have something to offer, you know. What's underneath that fear? I have a fear of being stupid. Who's that about? Does self-cherishing come up? What if I look stupid? What if I do? So what? This is where that ego stuff comes in. That we want it to go a certain way. A lot of fear comes from not being able to control how it's going to go.
I think we give up a lot of good things in life of fear of disappointing ourselves or disappointing others.
Yeah, we won't try. It's like we don't.
Failure.
Well, yeah, it's a fear of failure. What's that about? Our reputation. The Buddha said, letting go of our reputation is the last thing we'll let go of. That's really hard for us. Because it's part of our clinging to a self. We have an idea of a self we want to be or present to others or da 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 da. And we're afraid we can't do it. This is why having inner wisdom to be able to to develop some sense of I may look like an idiot. It does not matter. Other people may not like me. There are lots of times other people don't like us. Not everybody's going to like us. It's not possible. Now, we can behave badly. So they may be able to go, well, it's obvious why I don't like you. But the point is that grasping on it needs to go this way for me to take the risk is an obstacle. Yes, it's risky to change our minds. This is why you want to look at how you feel when you're having these disturbing states of mind. You want to hold on to it forever because you can do nothing. It doesn't go away by itself. Or can you make an active effort to go, okay, what can I do to make this better? And we have to, like I said before, we really have to respect our pace. What a baby step is for you may be entirely different from a baby step for someone else. And that's okay. It absolutely doesn't matter. So doing these things with a ton of self-compassion is very important to recognize I'm doing this because I don't want to suffer in this way anymore, and I'm worth it. So it's kind of interesting. You have to use this self-respect, this self-cherishing, this self-care in order to support you through the process of change. Over time, just like anything else, when you were learning and you're just like, oh, like, did you learn how to drive? And then the first time you had to drive someone else, it was kind of like, well, I'm an anxious person, so it made me nervous. It was like, oh no, they're going to see how I drive. And then eventually, it stops, because if you keep doing it, you have the experience that you can go, oh, I can trust myself to be okay, or not. I know people who will never drive someone else because they just can't handle the pressure. And that's good that they know that. So it's just a matter of being able to pace ourselves, have respect for the pace we need to go, and recognize when we're checking out, if that's an appropriate phrase, when we're just kind of giving ourselves too much slack. So yesterday morning, I don't like to make business phone calls. And so calling for the road assistant to get my car jumped, yesterday morning, God, it seems like forever ago. I had to say, I had to say, look, it's just going to get worse if you don't take care of it. You do not want to have to call someone for a ride tomorrow. You must just deal with this. You're a grown-up. You can deal with this, But if I hadn't brought in the fact that I needed to be able to get to class today, I probably it still would be an issue. So, we have to use whatever we can do. I want to show up for my friends. I want to show up for class. I want to show up for this or that. So I need to take care of my car. It's stupid. And is it embarrassing to share this with you? Absolutely. I mean, good grief. I'm a Buddhist nun. Can't, get over it. But we have to know where our limits are. Y'all have no idea where I started. I know I've changed. And so I have that to draw on as I try to change more. So it's just, I know this path works. I don't know if it'll work for you, but I know it's something that works. It works for me. Yep.
That same exact experience yesterday where something happened and I realized I'm going to have to go in a new direction. And I just melted down and I looked to myself and I said, excuse me, but look at what you've accomplished in your journey.
Exactly.
Do you think you can, it's just like, what is the matter with you that you're letting these other things melt you down?
Yeah. And it's okay that we do it. This is habits of mind, and they're hard to overcome. But if we can just give ourselves a little talking to and bring in the fact that we have accomplished so much, and that we really would like to experience life without this issue. We need to, I wonder what it's like. I wonder what it's like to be assertive, to speak up, to da-da-da-da-da. Wonder what it's like to, not always have to suppress what I'm feeling. Think so, we have to, what a pep talk,
It's like the saying, you've made it through 100% of your worst days. But before we were getting close to the end, you had mentioned something, you were going to say something about Shantideva. I don't know if you were.
Oh, yeah, I never got to that, did I?
Quote, please.
Thank you,
Reverend.
So Shantideva, and it's translated many, many ways. But my central translation at this moment, because that's all I can think of, is that how does it start? There's something that
Something bad has happened.
something you don't like and you can't fix it, why worry? Can't be fixed. No point in worrying. You have to just deal with that, or walk away, or whatever, but you can't fix it. If you can fix it, why worry? Just fix it. That's the problem solving. So worry is not an answer to either part. Yes, Dean.
I love that modern neuroscience has totally supported Buddhism.
I know, it's finally catching up.
Yeah. And, you know, the whole idea of neurons that fire together, wire together, you've practiced it.
Yes, and what precedes that is our thoughts. That our brain is actually, neuroscience might not agree with that. If they're materialists, they don't tend to agree with that. They think it's all physical. Many people say, well, we can't find the mind, so maybe it's not physical. You know, that it's our habits that cause that change in our brain.
Well, I read Rick Hansen, we've talked about.
Yeah, I do too.
He's a very much practicing Buddhist neuroscience. Yeah.
Yep, but still. So we want to, you know, when we read neuroscience, we want to also understand that Buddhism can sometimes, not all scientists, and does not disagreeing with all of them, but some scientists believe everything about consciousness is just generated from the brain. It's just an electrical blah, 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 blah. Other scientists don't think that. They think that consciousness is somehow bigger than that. You know, and that it, you know, so Buddhism says that consciousness precedes that physical change, you know. So, but you can see in the way in which the brain supports or hinders us, whatever, you know, if we've been laying these neurons down, you know, all our lives, then that fact that things just arise, just like, there it is again. Oh, there I am, nervous. There I am angry. There I am impatient. There I am, you know, jealous, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's because we've wired ourselves that way. And so undoing the wiring or creating a new pathway takes practice, takes effort, you know, so it's well worthwhile, but it's, you know, having expectations is not helpful. You know, who knows how long I'll take? Who knows exactly what your baby steps will be? Who knows what your big leaps are? Some things just change with big leaps because somehow you realize, oh, I've kind of actually already let go of that. Now I just need to act that way. So other things are like pulling teeth, you know, it's your own. Just because you really have been clinging to this as being the truth for so long, it is so hard to trust that letting go of it will be more skillful, you know. So
so this wiring goes with us then, Torna.
No, the wiring doesn't, the habits do.
Habits do.
Yeah, the body, this brain's gonna just totally give out on us. So it has nothing to do with our physical body.
But the consciousness.
It's our consciousness that goes from life to life. And it's the subtle consciousness. It's not our storyline that we're having right now, which includes all our habits. Our subtle mind carries all these imprints on the mind. That's why you'll be born with certain habits, you know. If you happen to be born in a family with similar conditions as this one or whatever, you know, there's some of the habits you've got, you know, they'll arise because the conditions will be there. You know, like say you're very generous, you know, and you're born into a wealthy family. You have resources, you get, you know, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Just enough time for prayers. Okay. So what we do now in order to help that wiring thing, you know, this imprints on our mind stream. So in Buddhism, we'd say the imprints on the mind stream are not physical, but our brain reflects it as well, and that's physical. So, oh, Nana. It's on it.
Yes.
Ready. Thank you. So this is Master Shantideva. He's the one with the verse. He wrote a book called, or there was a book published from his teachings on the Bodhisattva's way of life, or the Guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, or it's got many titles, but he was an 8th century practitioner, and these dedication verses are from one of his chapters. But it has a chapter on patience. It has a chapter on bodhicitta. It has a chapter on developing compassion. It has a chapter on wisdom. It has a chapter on, all sorts of things. And all of it is wonderful. I mean, not wonderful to read necessarily, because you read one and go, oh, I don't do that. And you read one of the negative ones and you go, oh, I don't read that. So, so what we're doing now, we're taking all the positive imprints that we placed in our mind stream, this morning, and we're dedicating it. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Okay. We're dedicating it to be of benefit to others. We can't actually make it be of benefit to others, but we want to develop that habit that we do things for the benefit of others, if it's actually going to benefit us. So, so we can talk about that some other time too. So anyway, all right. So rejoice in whatever positive efforts you've made. Remember your motivation in the beginning. Pat yourself on the back. Whatever we need to remind yourself to we need to rejoice in our positive efforts. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as faith remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then the long life prayer for us. And one thing I really want to emphasize is this week, if you're observing in your mind, always observe with compassion, and gentleness. If we have some sort of negative state of mind arise and we're always doing it, we don't want to scold ourselves. We want to rejoice that we noticed, by noticing we can make the change, and that takes time. So, okay. For the long life of His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. It's on the page. What page is it in the book? 234. Somewhere in there, it's glued in. Okay. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Stravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that's never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of yours, May the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have classes on Sundays, obviously. Wednesday night, we're doing Discovering Buddhism, Minding Its Potential. That's on at 7 p.m. I mean, it's a series of courses that go more in depth with each of the, parts of the puzzle. So, and then on a week from Monday, we'll have a class on Monday nights on, it's what I call an overview of the path, but it's this idea of being able to look at the whole picture. And so if you're familiar a little bit with Buddhism or have done all of Discovering Buddhism, all this stuff, it's an opportunity to make sure you're understanding how all the pieces of the path fit together. So, so that's a week from Monday at 7. Anything else I need to announce?
Discovering Buddhism on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, Discovering Buddhism Wednesday night. That's Minding Its Potential.
Tuesday on Zoom with Venerable Tendron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check out the calendar.
Which is on next month.
Yeah. So hopefully it's been updated.
Is the overview that you mentioned a week from Monday good for beginners as well, or is it?
I would have to ask a beginner. It's sort of like, yes. Okay.
And all of it's good for a beginner. I mean, it's.
I kind of
you're
go that
listening,
way.
You're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
all in English.
And we chat a lot,
The same, so you can hear it. You can understand
There's a
it.
class at the back for May 30th.
Where's that?
Okay. So everybody have a great week. Have a meaningful week. Take good care of your minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Tendron.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, Peggy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, Jean.